So this is the Logitech MX Master 3. And for those of you wondering, the MX Master 2S, its predecessor, was launched more than 2 years ago. And if you recall my review of this mouse, aside from the way how I looked, I actually really enjoyed my time using this guy because it was packed with features that helped ease my workflow for editing videos and doing other things. But it was also geared for professionals who spend a lot of time sitting in front of a screen, creating spreadsheet documents, working on presentations, coding, working on graphics, you name it. Now the Master 3 addresses some of the issues that I had with the 2S, but Logitech has also added some more features to make it a little bit better, like a newly redesigned max speed scroll wheel, which I'll go over in the video, as well as the inclusion of pre-configured button profiles that can take advantage of all of these buttons, including the horizontal scroll wheel, depending on certain apps. And the best part is they aren't charging a premium for it. It still retails for $99, so it's the same price as the 2S when it was launched back then. So let's go over some of the changes that Logitech has done to the Master 3 and compared to the 2S. But first, a quick message from our sponsor.
The Razer Blade Pro 17, pushing performance to the edge. What edge? The edge, where the snakes live. It is now smaller and lighter than previous generations and cooler under heavy workloads thanks to additional fans and vapor chamber cooling. The display is also factory calibrated for beautiful colors and impressively thin bezels to please your eyeballs for work and play with high-performance Max-Q GPUs. Also, let's not forget the wonderful connectivity options to future-proof this notebook, the Razer Blade Pro 17. Check it out below.
Alright, so what's new with the Master 3? As you can see from a physical standpoint, they do look different. So the Master 3 doesn't have the pointy tip like the 2S, and they've slimmed down the palm rest area by a little bit. It's still the same size as the 2S, and weight-wise, the 3 is 4 grams lighter than the 2S, but honestly, I wasn't able to tell the difference. However, coming from my glorious Model O that weighs only 67 grams, the difference was night and day. But then again, these two mice are geared towards different users, so that's something to keep note of. Unfortunately, it's not ambidextrous, so left-hand users are out of the equation. If you prefer a palm type grip, the Master 3 does not disappoint, just like the 2S. My hands are fairly large and I was comfortably able to wrap them around the body, but you could hold it claw style as well if you're into that. They've shifted the battery LED indicator to a more visible spot because with the 2S, I was easily able to hide the indicators with my thumb due to its location. And the biggest shift for me, at least, is that they relocated the forward and backward buttons to a comfortable position. It's right underneath the horizontal scroll wheel, and I was easily able to reach all 3 of them without having to stress my thumb like I did with the 2S. However, they're still not as tactile as I'd like them to be. They still feel mushy, but that's just personal. The primary left and right buttons, on the other hand, have great tactile feedback, and they don't require a lot of pressure to register. As for other changes, the Master 3 finally uses USB Type-C for charging, and it supports quick charge, so you can get about 3 hours of use from a minute of charge, which is awesome. Unfortunately, battery life hasn't really improved compared to the 2S, because they still feature the same size battery, and so expect up to 70 days worth of use from a single charge, which is still amazing considering that this is a wireless mouse packed with features. Now, having switched to the 2S for a little while since launch, I remember taking it to show floors like CES and Computex, and I only remember charging it maybe 1 or 2 times over the course of 6 months, which is amazing. And the Master 3 is still going strong. I still have full bars, which by the way can be monitored through the options software. Unfortunately, I still wish if they gave us the option to view the battery percentage, but we don't have it. So yeah. Now, just like the Master 2S, the Master 3 comes with Bluetooth support and easy switch, which means the user can switch between 3 different systems at the same time by pressing this button right over here, which is pretty cool. I think this will come in super handy if you're working in an environment where you have to switch between different systems at the same time. And if you're looking for a keyboard to go along with that, Logitech did announce MX Keys, which features flow support as well as easy switch. And I think that would be a perfect companion for the Magic 3. It is $100. Which is expensive, but hey, if that's something that you're looking into, that's an option. Moving on, let's talk about the max speed scroll wheel. Logitech spent quite a bit of time talking about this feature during my briefing, so here's what you need to know. They've implemented electromagnets inside the wheel that's supposed to offer silent and precise movement as well as a seamless transition between ratchet mode and free spin. For those of you wondering, ratchet mode is when you can physically feel the scroll steps, whereas if you quickly switch over to free spin, you're basically letting the scroll wheels go for as long as it can depending on how much force you applied. So when you're in ratchet mode, the magnets inside are polar opposite, which results in repulsion. Hence, you'd be able to feel the scroll steps as the teeth inside make contact with each other. When you switch over to free spin, the mouse sends an electric charge, which then reverses the polarity, and so the inner teeth retracts, making no contact with the exterior wheel, which ultimately doesn't create resistance. But why would someone need such a crazy high-tech scroll wheel on a mouse? I can't really answer that question, but I can certainly tell you how it feels. The scroll steps, they feel a lot more smoother and softer compared to the Master 2S, and most importantly, they're very quiet. You can't really hear the scroll steps as you're scrolling through. It almost feels like it's vibrating inside, but it really isn't. It probably is the electromagnets anyway. Here's a quick sound test comparing this hyper max speed scroll wheel to the hyper fast scroll wheel on the Master 2S. So I hope that gave you a rough idea on how this new mechanism works. It's really difficult to explain it through video, guys, because you really have to try it in person to experience it. You see, I'm coming from a traditional mouse with a scroll wheel that has well-defined scroll steps that I can feel them and hear them. It's normal to me, but switching to something that's out of the ordinary, something that uses electromagnets inside, it was a little bit awkward at first, but I slowly started to like it after because of its smoothness, and just when I'm, editing videos and doing things in Photoshop, it just felt a lot more natural and pretty cool too. But is it a revolutionary feature that's worth upgrading from your existing mouse? Not really, guys, because if you're coming from something like the Master 2S, the hyperfast scroll wheel is one of the signature features of the MX Master series. And yes, the scroll wheel feels a little bit more premium compared to the 2S, but it's not worth upgrading to, at least in my opinion. But if you're willing to try something new, if you're coming from something a little bit more basic, why not? One of the things that I loved about the 2S was the ability to customize the buttons with different commands. Not just Windows specific, but app-based as well. So if you need to create a custom button layout for Photoshop or AutoCAD or Adobe Premiere, you can easily set that up through Logitech Options. The Master 3 adds an extra layer on top of that by pre-configuring the mouse with different app profiles. Once you install Logitech Options, the app scans for programs that you have installed on your system, and it identifies apps like Photoshop, Final Cut Pro, Microsoft Office, Adobe Premiere, and a few more, and it loads the button layout automatically. So for instance, with Photoshop, you can use the horizontal scroll wheel to adjust the brush size when you're doing touch-ups, or you can set it to adjust the hardness or opacity or zoom. I use DaVinci Resolve for editing these videos, so I use the horizontal wheel to scroll through my timeline. Plus, I have customized the forward and backward buttons to mark in and out points when I'm reviewing footage. This really helps my workflow. I use Excel to create graphs for comparisons, and to make things quick, I assign the horizontal scroll wheel to increase and decrease the text size, and the forward and backward buttons to redo and undo. If you're in a web browser like Chrome or Edge, you can use the horizontal wheel to switch between different tabs, which is also pretty neat. And if you hold the middle scroll wheel and start moving the mouse around, you can pan within an image, whether if you're in Photoshop or PowerPoint or any other program. Logitech has really unleashed customization to a whole other level, especially with that horizontal scroll wheel. It's more intuitive to use, and I really love using it for editing videos and creating thumbnails. That being said, you could technically do all of that on the Master 2S, except you lose a lot of the tool-based support for apps for the horizontal scroll wheel, and you also miss out on the pan feature. Plus, you also have to create profiles for every app by yourself, since it doesn't come preloaded with any. Moving on to tracking performance, and honestly, nothing has changed here. The Master 3 still uses the same dark field 4000 DPI sensor, just like the 2S, and it felt very similar. Now, I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. The Master 3 is not a gaming mouse, so you're not going to expect the most accurate, responsive pinpoint accuracy like you would on a traditional gaming mouse like the Model O with an optical sensor. I was still able to detect a little bit of acceleration and liftoff distance tracking, so if you plan on gaming, if you're planning on playing FPS titles on the Master 3, that is ultimately your choice, but I would strongly not recommend that. Just don't. Just don't buy this for gaming. The last thing that I want to cover here is the software experience. This is one of the best that I've looked at so far. It's simple and provides basic controls for the user to customize. If you want to set a custom button layout, you can simply hit over here and choose your app. But if Logitech doesn't support it, you can add programs manually, which is nice. And guys, the amount of customization that you can do with the Master 3 is endless, and I have nothing to complain about it. The point and scroll tab lets you adjust the sensitivity and a few more things. I still wish if Logitech gave us the visual indicator for DPI levels. It's pretty disappointing. I should also mention that this mouse supports Logitech's Flow, just like the Master 2S, and for starters, this is a pretty cool feature that lets you seamlessly switch the cursor between different computers as long as you're connected to the same Wi-Fi network. And you can also copy and paste files as well, although be mindful that it heavily depends on your network speed. So here's the bottom line with the MX Master 3. It's slightly refined compared to the Master 2S. The body certainly looks a lot different. They have relocated the forward and backward buttons to a more comfortable location, which I really like. You also get USB-C. Finally, that's a thing. I'm sure a lot of you guys will appreciate that as well. And the max speed scroll wheel, it's a cool feature. It uses electromagnets to create a smoother and quieter operation when you're scrolling through documents and doing things. But it's not really a feature that's worth upgrading from the Master 2S. However, if you desperately need USB Type-C and if you see yourself taking advantage of those custom pre-configured button layouts where you can bring in that horizontal scroll wheel within your workflow, and if you're a creator, I think you're going to appreciate the Master 3. Now, if you're a professional watching this video and if you're currently using a very basic mouse and if you're thinking about or looking for an upgrade to something a little bit more robust and feature-rich, I would highly recommend checking out the Master 3. Yes, it's still expensive at $100, but given Logitech's history with sales, you can certainly pick this up for a lot less during special sales event. So that's something that's worth looking forward to. I should also mention that I have switched from my glorious Model O to the Master 3, and I know a lot of gamers might be disappointed by that, but if you think about it, I spend the majority of my time creating content for you guys and less time gaming. So if I find something that can ease my workflow, make it a little more efficient and faster, that's a win-win for me. So let me know what you guys think about the Master 3 from Logitech. I really want to know your thoughts about it. Yes, it's truly interesting and different to try something refreshing compared to a traditional gaming mouse. So yeah, there's that. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm Eber with Hardware Canucks, signing off. Make sure to check out some relevant content over here. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so that you can get notified when we pump out a new video. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.